Welcome to another Tweedy Outdoors video. I'm eating some chips from the excellent Hassocks fish and chip shop. Always been quite a fan of it. I've come down to Hassocks because I felt like I really need to get out for the day. I haven't actually decided where I'm going from here, but it's always a good starting point for many potential walks. I am going to do some cooking while I'm out. I'm going to try and do some version of duck à la orange. Bits of line to the ridiculous, isn't it? That might be dinner, this is lunch. And hopefully the next shot you see will be in amidst some greenery and maybe some scenery. Well, that rhymes. I may have misled you with the previous suggestion the next shot would be of something green. I was thirsty after the chips, what can I say? This is the pub next to Hassocks Station. It's called the Hassocks. I don't think I've ever actually been in here before. I do seem to be struggling to get going today, but I will get up on a hill at some point. I've managed to drag myself away from Hassocks. I think I'm going to walk to Wolstonbury Hill. It's a plan, isn't it? I just seem to be too uninspired today to come up with anything more original than that. So Wolstonbury Hill it is. Normally when walking from Hassocks I carry on that way along to the Jack and Jill, but I think for a change I'll cross over here. It's a little bit of a shortcut for getting to Wolstonbury Hill, sort of cuts the corner off over this old railway bridge. There's a train coming, much like the overcrowded one that brought me here from London earlier. And there it is the other side as well. And over there in the distance, you probably can't quite see it, it's the famous crenellated Clayton Tunnel. I suppose that lump over there is Wolstonbury Hill. Over there, the rest of the South Downs, there is a bit of a valley, I suppose, in between where the A road runs through, and you can probably just about see the Jack and Jill windmills up above Clayton over there. Feels a bit too early in the video to me for a gate transition sequence. I suppose this is technically a style transition sequence, isn't it? Ooh. And I've dropped the camera. Bluebells seem to have a habit on this walk so far of only being just the other side of a fence from me. I can't seem to get a good close-up. There we go. There's a patch here, but again there is a fence in the way. Are you bored of bluebells yet this season? That is quite a nice display, I hope you'll agree. Doesn't seem to want to focus, does it? Being very uncooperative. No excuse for not focusing on those. Oh, and they're right there, there's nothing in the way. A big solid object. Now we see the violets inherent in the system. Help, help, I'm being repressed. Don't know if you can see that, but that hedge is also lined with bluebells up to about here, and then they stop. That's as far as they've managed to escape from the woods back there so far, I think. I've had to remove my jacket, I'm afraid, it's that warm. Perhaps you've already seen that, I don't know. This is New Way Lane. I've walked down here a couple of times before on past walks. Pleasant little country lane. Left that road now, this little old path. Take me the rest of the way to the foot of Wolstonbury Hill. If I recall correctly, there's actually a vineyard down at the bottom of the hill here. I forget the name of it. Is it called Little Danny Farm? But the sign here says Wolstonbury. Terrible camera work. Possibly this is a slightly better view of the vines. I think they're vines. They've got the deer guards on. Suggests they're quite young still. And this, I suppose, is the start of the bit of National Trust area of Wolstonbury Hill. I imagine this is going to be punishingly steep, isn't it? I may not film a huge amount on the ascent because I hate footage of me where I'm out of breath. I haven't gained a huge amount of height yet, but I can already see down to those vines. Better view of those from up here. Don't know if it's coming across on camera, but I find this a sort of surprisingly stark scene. The edge of that hillside there and just seemingly nothingness beyond it. There are of course further hills in that direction, it's just that sort of brow of the hill effect, isn't it? So what do we have in terms of wildflowers then? Is that more of that violets inherent in the system? And then over here, a few cowslips. Do you like a cowslip? I know they grow everywhere, but they somehow remind me particularly of the South Downs. I do like Wolstonbury Hill. It has a sort of sense of drama to it. Perhaps because I remember coming here in the absolute pouring rain once and heavy winds. That's the view over in that direction. Is that over towards Devil's Dyke? I did have a nicely set up shot on a fence post there, but the wind blew the camera off the fence. Hopefully you can see some of the first lumps and bumps. The Bronze Age with possibly Neolithic origin sites on Wolstonbury Hill are generally rather boringly referred to as Wolstonbury A, B and C. And even more boringly, I think most of the literature just calls them enclosures rather than even hill forts. To confuse matters further, in at least as far back as the 18th century and quite possibly before that, this site was mined for flint. Almost nothing left of any original material in any of those ancient sites on the top there because it's been perturbed so much by flint mining. Pitt Rivers was here at some point in the 19th century, was that 1860s maybe, and did a minor investigation of the site. I was about to go down into that bowl there and go back up the other side, but I realised there is this almost like a perimeter path along this. Could this possibly have been a rampart? I'm not sure if this earthwork here even relates to the Bronze Age Wolstonbury ABC enclosures or later flint mining. Nice little patch of hilltop gorse here. I do love a gorse bush. I think there might be some more lumps and bumps the other side. Maybe these are even part of the lumps and bumps. Do you remember there being a large number of tumuli marked on Wolstonbury Hill? Looks to be some sort of ditch and bank arrangement here. This is presumably one part of Wolstonbury A, B or C. Those very boringly labelled enclosures, and then beyond there I can see the Jack and Jill windmills. Time to get the phone out and that optical zoom, isn't it? And that there is the trig point atop Wolstonbury Hill. Shall we give it the customary tap? Sorry, wonky camera work. Pretty windy up here on top. Might have the top briefly to myself. I'm sure I'll be interrupted by someone else who will wonder why I'm talking to my imaginary friends in a little box. But you can see all these lumps and bumps, and as I say, they are marked on the OS map as tumuli, but it's difficult to distinguish between what's flint mining versus what's potentially funerary burial mounds. I do seem to see a lot of these yellow flowers in this kind of landscape. I suppose it's par for the gorse. Sat down for a bit by this gorse bush here, but Wolstonbury Hill was awful today. There are other people here. I could hear maybe a dozen people the other side of the gorse bush, so I think I'm going to head on and find somewhere else to sit. It's too early in the day. I've timed this weirdly. Lunch has now passed and far too early to start thinking about dinner, so I guess I'll just walk to find another hill in the vain hope there'll be fewer people there. Absolutely hordes of people walking down the path over there. I think part of the problem with Wolstonbury Hill is it stands alone. It's a little isolated hill. It is part of the South Downs, but it doesn't form part of a continuous ridge. It's surrounded on all sides by sort of valleys. So it does funnel people to the top, unfortunately. I think I'm going to head up to the other bit, the ridge starting from the Jack and Jill windmills, because at least then there's more space to spread out. 48. It's worse than the prisoner, isn't it? I'm not a number. You're both the same number. Maybe that identifies the farm rather than individual sheep. I think over there we have a 25 rather than a 48. Perhaps it signifies something else altogether. Are you bored yet of shots of me zooming in on the windmill? Certainly quickly running down the battery on my phone. That is the A273 down there. It's a shame in a way because the railway goes underground here, the Clayton Tunnel is going somewhere underneath all of that lot, but the road had to sort of stick out on top. But there is a permissive bridleway here, so I don't have to walk down the road. Can follow this little roadside path for a bit, and I think I join up with the South Downs Way. Look at that, joined the South Downs Way. Weird to see that on a road sign. A little bit over the top. I have the surreal landscape of Pycoon Golf Course to traverse now. Some lumps and bumps there. Presumably not of great antiquity. you get a view in the distance of the Jack and Jill windmills across the golf course, and you could almost be forgiven for thinking you're playing crazy golf instead. It's taken a long time just to get free of that golf course. That was a massive golf course, Pycombe golf course there. I suppose mercifully at least this is a relatively, what's the opposite of steep, shallow incline track heading back up the other side of the downs, having had to lose all that height coming off Wolstonbury Hill, which maddeningly now is probably empty, isn't it? Now that I've left it. Here I am in familiar territory, not far from Ditchling Beacon, I suppose. Odd to see bluebells on an open hillside like that. Quite a nice contrast to the colour of the bluebells, the colour of the gorse there. I've been dithering for ages trying to find a good spot to do a bit of cooking. It's really hard here because there's very little flat ground and a lot of it is very exposed. It's actually a bit windy here. The little bits of flat ground that there are covered in brambles and or cow. Don't waste your breath telling me this is an inauthentic dish. I know it is. I'm cooking it in a bleeding gorse bush for a start. I'm going to make duck à la orange. I just like the ridiculousness, the absurdity, is that a word, of doing this outdoors like this on a camp stove. That is the duck. Don't be confused by some of the words on that tin there. Mock there refers to Albert Moquet, who was a close friend of Pierre Larousse. He, the author of the Larousse Gastronomique. You're not buying this, are you? Anyway, something approximating duck in a tin. There is an orange. I have various other ingredients, but you know, you get the basic idea. That's going to be the mainstay of it. As always, I'm going to start with chopping a member of the allium family, a shallot. As always, I will take every single bit home with me. I do like a shallot now and again. Slightly sort of sweeter, a little bit more, I don't know, fragrant, are they? Slightly different flavour from an onion, a bit less intense perhaps, feels a bit more sophisticated. Can I do that all in a line like that? Almost, not quite. I could show you more footage of me chopping up this particular member of the allium family, but that shallot. Frying pan today, usual gas stove there. Let's put some oil in first, just olive oil. Butter might have felt more French actually, but this is probably how they do it in the south of France. And that shallot can go in there. Probably too much shallot for the amount of completely real authentic duck. I was going to do this in the billy can, but I seem to keep burning things on the bottom in the billy can recently, and right, nice and gentle. I really could have just brought a proper can opener, couldn't I? And this one doesn't have a ring pull or anything on, but for some stupid reason I thought, oh, I'm doing outdoorsy stuff, I have to use one of these things instead. And they're not easy, are they? I'm not even quite sure I can remember the technique, but this is probably going to be the single most challenging part of cooking this meal, getting this thing open. I think you just sort of plunge it in, don't you? Or do you? I'm keeping my fingers well away from this, don't worry. I sort of get the technique. You kind of, it's difficult to show you and do it at the same time without it being dangerous, but I've pierced the first hole, so hopefully it'll be easier from here. Right, I've got that half open at least. Is that enough to get the chunks out? You probably wanted to see that, didn't you? This is the really, definitely, incredibly real, authentic duck meat in this tin here. Don't question it. Absolutely, definitely, completely real. I use this in duck pancakes at home. Of course, it would be easier to get out if I'd properly, fully opened that, but it's left behind a terrifying, jagged edge. That's going to be fun transporting home safely. But I want some orange juice. Quite like some orange slices as well. Should we get out today's wine? It actually feels appropriate for a change. This is a very French dish, well, a very inauthentic rendering of a French dish. And I have some Gevrey Chambertin. Of course I have some Gevrey Chambertin. Do I ever have anything else? It's a producer called Joseph Roti, who I've featured a few times probably before, even on Tweedy Outdoors, I think. And it's a 2020 vintage, which might not be immediately my favourite, but it's getting to the point now where beggars can't be choosers. Less and less of anything pre-2020 available. Obviously they can't make any more. Goes without saying. Where is my wine glass? Wow, that is dark, isn't it? 2020 was quite a hot year. Might have made something veering on a little bit black fruit and jammy. It's going a little bit that way, but I'll struggle through. It'll be drinkable. That's the current state of that. For once, I do actually seem to be getting a nice slow sauté, not just burning everything on the bottom straight away. It's starting to stick just a bit on the bottom, so let's give that a bit of a deglazing. And also into that I'm going to add the juice of the other half of the orange. Might give us a little bit of water, but it's the one thing I'm actually a little bit short of today. The final ingredient there, and I'm absolutely convinced this is not authentic, some orange marmalade. I've seen the Hairy Bikers did this. Apparently it gives it a sort of a glossy sheen. I can't remember the name of the original sauce that the actual French version of this is based on, but that does have a sort of sweet and sour component to it. It has some vinegar and some sugar. So the marmalade here at least playing the role of some of that sugar. I suppose the sourness is going to come a bit from the wine, a little bit of acidity in that, and a bit from that orange juice. I'm not in any way pretending this is even slightly authentic. That's basically it. That's all the ingredients in there. This incredibly authentic duck is already quite salty, I believe, so I don't think I'm going to need to season this and just cook for a bit to reduce down. And then I'll do some mash. Let's set this aside for a bit. That can maybe, I don't know if it will thicken by standing. Apparently this is reasonably heat proof, this pathetic table. Billy on there. I'm keen to get this mash in progress. That is basically almost all of my water. I'll make it slightly gloopier than it says. Can you see that? Hopefully. I suppose we can turn that up now. No sense dawdling. Do you want some additional tasting notes while we're waiting for the Billy can to boil? Thick black cherry on the nose. Puree or something of black cherry, really concentrated, thick, dense. But there is a bit of brighter, fresher cherry on the palate. Quite a lot of tannin though. I don't remember this before from previous vintages of Joseph Roti's Gevrey Chambertin. A little bit of a tannic kick to that. Not the finest hour, I think. The 2019 was superb. This is, I don't know, a little bit veering, jammy, and tannins seem a little bit overdone to me personally, but that's just my preference. What do I know? That to me is close enough to a rolling boil. So I know purists will grumble about me using instant mashed potato here, but I think this stuff is decent. And I did cook some potatoes from scratch on Exmoor in the last video, so go and watch that if you really want to see some authenticity or whatever. It takes bloody ages, all right? So this is very convenient. I'm going to actually plonk this back on here for a moment. So that can have a bit more of a warm through. I don't think I really have quite enough water, but it'll do. It's close enough. This is the roasted garlic flavour. Oh, is my phone on? Oh, I've got the Dartmoor podcast video started playing now. Look forward to watching that when I'm back home later. I'm just going to throw it all in and hope it's more or less fine. It might be, it might not be. I thought the garlic mash version sounded a bit more French or something. Should we try a bit of this? It only needs a minute, I think. Yeah, that really is all right. I've had worse mashed potato that I've made myself from actual potatoes. Ideally this would be thickened. I mean, it is a bit runny, isn't it? It's a bit runny. I don't care how runny it is. I'm eating it with this mashed potato, which was slightly under provisioned for the water. That's going to help soak that up. So I think I'm going to stop now. Ideally thicken that with a bit of corn flour or whatever, but I'm in a gorse bush, don't have time for such luxuries. I'm actually of a mind, I know it seems ridiculous, but to spoon some of this mash into the side there, because as I say, that will help soak up the sauce a bit. There is the finished dish. If nothing else, you've never seen this before on YouTube. Have you been watching Messner's meals? Been quite enjoying that actually. He's been pretty creative. He did a toad in the hole the other day. Let's try some of the duck à l'orange in isolation. It is pretty orangey. Not a dish for anyone who is not a fan of oranges, but I think that's really nice. I think the idea of this classically is that the citrus and the sweetness possibly even cuts through the grease of the duck. I'm not sure my incredibly high-end version of duck there is necessarily as fatty as the normal one that most people eat. It's weird, but it's nice. Rich tasting, but the orange keeps it refreshing. And I don't think that's lacking seasoning, especially as the potato is pretty salty as well. Well, I like that. Maybe you can get normal duck in a can, I don't know. Well, I think I've seen confit duck in jars or something in France. I'm really happy with that. Bit weird, a little bit unconventional, but Messner will be doing it next. You watch. Right, I'm going to shut up and eat that. How lovely the gorse looks with the early evening sun shining on it. I can't really see the sunset because the bushes are a bit too high and I'd have to stand up, but once I'm finished I will go and take a look. Hashtag leave no trace. It's been a useful handy little clearing there here in amongst the gorse bushes. All finished, all packed away. Still have some wine left though, so perhaps I can find a nice spot to sit and enjoy the sunset for a bit. That is the current state of it. Sorry, it's probably all in silhouette, isn't it? I'm shooting into the sun there. It's getting on for 7:15. I assume sunset something like 8 p.m. now. I might enjoy at least some of it while I'm on my way back to Hassocks. I don't think I brought any head torches or anything with me today, so probably should have at least a bit of daylight left while I'm doing that walk. Yeah, I think I should sit here and enjoy at least one more glass of wine and this lovely view. Hopefully you can appreciate at least a bit of that. I'll try taking some of the shots with my phone and stuff to see if I can get a better one. Probably not a straight horizon, but isn't this nice? I hope you can appreciate a bit of the view. Like I said, I'll get my phone out and do some hopefully better shots with that, but delightful setting, isn't it? I can see bluebells and golden light on the gorse bushes, and there are birds tweeting, which you probably can't hear because I'm using the lav mic, which only focuses on my droning on and on. And the sprawl of England's green and pleasant land and bits of the South Downs off in the distance, and Ditchling down there and Hassocks over there and some vineyards in the corner there, and it's all pretty pleasant really. Can't seem to keep the tripod straight. It's very wobbly ground. Wobbly ground. Well, the ground is, you know what I mean. Uneven ground. Well, it's been a funny sort of a day out. Is that how Arkwright in Open All Hours used to summarise each episode? It's been a funny sort of day. I felt a need to get into the countryside, and then when I got here I seemed to be completely unsure where to go and what to do and what sort of a route to follow. And I think the key thing was I wanted to get away from people, and that's proved quite challenging on a relatively pleasant weather Easter Saturday on the South Downs, which is hardly the most remote part of countryside in England. I have had wonderful times here when it's been amazingly deserted. Really seems to depend on the day. Today's perhaps not one of those days. Even when I was cooking in the bushes, I could hear people off in the distance most of the time, and dogs barking and so on, but oh well. That's going to look rubbish, isn't it? That is the current state of the sky at something like 7:42. I think sunset is due at just a couple of minutes past 8, so 20 minutes away. Delightful though it was, sitting there enjoying that wine. Wasn't the best. I think it is time to head off. Getting a little bit chilly now, and I will quickly warm up as soon as I start moving. But as I probably said earlier, I'm a bit conscious of the fact I don't have any lights with me today, so I ought to have at least some daylight to get down that hill. I don't mind walking along country lanes in the dark. Well, country lanes might not be ideal, but you know, flat footpaths in the dark, not so bad. But walking down a steep hill in the dark without a light, probably not a great idea. A watery sunset over there. Been sort of partly cut in half by a couple of clouds. I fear these may be the last decent shots of the sunset. Is it there somewhere, or is my big fat head in the way? Of course, I'm descending the hill now, so it's going to be less visible. There'll be junk in the way. That's all right, isn't it? Not bad effort from the sun over there. A little bit cloudy, a bit hazy over by the horizon, but a bit of pink, bit of orange, it'll do. A bit random, isn't it? Sunset, but now a cow. Made it down off the hill, and look, still plenty of daylight. Should be easy from here. Back on good old Underhill Lane, which is, I always say when I'm in this neck of the woods, reminds me of something out of Lord of the Rings. It feels like it belongs in the Shire. Underhill Lane. So I'll walk back this way, probably just to Clayton, and then along that path along by the side of the railway. The moment of sunset has now passed, so that's what it has to show for itself. To be honest, it looks better on my phone than it does in real life. The phone's adding a bit of orangey sort of light. It's more just pink to my eyes in real life. Once again, my phone camera is making it look nicer than it really does in real life. Oh well, I'm not complaining. Oh good, there's cows in that field. Brilliant. That's what I want this time of night. The calves are a bit jolly. Probably horribly jerky. The GoPro hates these sorts of light levels. The stabilisation goes nuts. Shall I stand still for a moment? Probably last glimpse of the downs behind me there. Maybe I should just use the GoPro mic for this clip because the birdsong's nice. Oh, say that now I can just hear a train. Oh well. Wondered if my phone might be better at these low light situations than the GoPro. Probably not. This is that path that runs along the railway track back to Hassocks. Just for reference, this is what the GoPro managed to achieve with the same scene. Probably not much in it, is there? Okay, another safe return to Hassocks station. Train's a bit messed up, but you don't need to know that, do you? I've stopped off at the Sainsbury's and bought myself some jelly tots for the train home. But a funny sort of a video, hasn't it? I just couldn't really quite decide what I wanted to do today, and oh well, hopefully there was something of some vague entertainment value therein nonetheless. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.